Well, like you said earlier, the police pretty much left you guys alone because it was Chinese gangs shooting other Chinese gangs. But then a situation happened when a tourist got killed in Chinatown.
Yeah, so that brought definitely brought attention to all the Chinese gangs when that tourist got killed. Yeah, that brought a lot of police scrutiny, and ever since then, between the police van bombing and the tourists and all these other things that happened, I knew they were like setting up, to fail. Eventually they're gonna target the Chinese gangs, and sure enough, that's why they no longer exist. They don't. They don't. There's no more ghost shadows. No more flying dragons. It's all gone. It's history.
Up to this point, with all the activities you were doing between the violence, the gambling houses, the extortion, the robberies, were you doing home invasions yourself or no?
No,
Now, were you getting arrested at all or no?
no.
Just because you were lucky, or
I had
was there other
I had
reasons?
many police encounters. I got stopped many times. I got searched many times. My business got searched also, and yeah. So, what would you say? Would you say is lucky? I don't know. What would you call it? Uh, I
I
mean,
mean,
you.
were you guys paying off the police at all or no?
Let's put it this way. I don't want to comment on certain things like that, the sensitive topics like that, but certain cases went nowhere. Let's put it that way. Certain
Okay.
cases went nowhere.
Well, there was a situation that changed your outlook on things. And it was a case where a cop got shot, a cop named Steven McDonald, and he was left a quadriplegic. But when it got to court, the cop actually forgave the teenager and said he was a product of his environment.
Yes, when I was always reading the newspapers back in those days to see if what's going on between the Chinese gangs, if they made the papers or any of my crew members made the papers, for what they did. And I came across the article of Steve McDonald, and I continued to follow it all the way to the end. And yeah, it struck a chord in me because, he forgave the kid. And I'm like, if that happened to me, like, how can you forgive somebody like that? It wasn't part of my nature, my mindset, my personality. It wasn't me. Like, so I try to question, like, why do I think this way, but why does he think that way? And then when he made that comment that he was a product of his environment, I was young. I didn't know what that meant until I actually, really sit down and think about it. And I remember that day, I was in my living room thinking, like, am I a product of my environment? So I have to do a lot of self-reflection during that time. And, like, what I'm doing is bad. I know what I'm doing is wrong. It's not that I don't know the difference between right and wrong, but then is it because of the environment that I was in, and how do I get out of this environment? Because I was in so deep, like I was in deep already. Like, how do I just like pick up and leave? It's just like people may not understand it. Like, for example, if you're like a domestic violence victim, you're in so deep, like you can just like pick up and leave. People say, oh, it's easy, just pick up and leave your spouse, right? But it's not as easy as you think. So one of the ways I thought about just leaving and just giving up everything is to go into the military. So that was, one of the routes I was going to take, and I was prepared to take that route because I was like, you know what? Let me just give up everything. Just sell all my business, pennies on the dollar, just get rid of it and start a new life. Start from scratch. Because I'm not afraid. I'm the type of person who's not afraid, to start everything from the beginning. So I said, you know what? And welcome the unknown. Like, that's the type of person I am. So you know what? Just I'm gonna get rid of everything and then go into the military. But then I took the exam the police exam years before, because like I said, it was either military or the police department, right? So I can just get out. And then the police department called me in 1993, and I was still conflicted. Like, I got 1 foot here and 1 foot there, and like the money was good, and I was making money through the business. So I postponed it. I said, you know what, I'm not ready for it. And then they called me again in 95. Said, here's your last chance. Otherwise, your list number is going to expire. And then I'm like, okay, this is it. So I just took the plunge. And when I took the plunge, I just like got rid of everything. Sold all my businesses. And I made the transition. And I know that if I had to make that transition, it would be a 180. I can't like get involved with that old Mike is going to be gone, like anything as far as like criminality, I'm moving on to the next chapter of my life, and that's what happened.
I mean, people make transitions, but this is, like you said, a 180. You went from being a gangster who is trying to avoid the cops. The cops are essentially the enemy because the cops are the guys who are going to put you in prison, to now being a cop yourself. Like when you told the other gang members that you're going to become a cop, how did they take it?
It wasn't years later. It wasn't a lot of the gang members. I didn't say anything about it. Eventually they found out, but I'll get into that later. But I never viewed the cops as enemies. I don't view them as enemies, okay? I view them as they're doing their job. So I don't take it personal, And I always view the cops as like heroes because they saved my mom from getting robbed and raped. And it's in my book. The whole story is in my book. I grew up watching like Barney Miller, Kojak, Beretta, Charlie's Angels, like I grew up watching these cop shows, and they always present them as heroes. So to me, they weren't my enemies. Like, I guess the criminals back then are different from the criminals nowadays. Because I remember when I was a cop and in the 90s, and this guy, he got roughed up by one of our guys. Pretty bad, sent him to the hospital because he was caught in the act doing a burglary, and we ran up on him as he was walking down the stairs. One of our guys walking up the stairs, and he got roughed up. And he caught in the act with the proceeds of a burglary. And you know what? He didn't file any lawsuits or any, CCRB or anything like that. I had to sit with him in the hospital. It became a walkthrough. I had to sit with him in the hospital, the holding cell, all the way until he, got arraigned. And I spent a lot of time talking to him, He accepted it. It was, hey, you know what? I did what I did. You guys did what you did, It was like more accepted back then. Now is a different world, different era. Like he wasn't going to stitch on the cops who roughed him up, It wasn't personal, He didn't take it personal. He owned up to it. Yep, I went in the house, blah, blah, blah. I got beat up by the cops, and that's it. And that was that. So it's a different era now.